let's talk about self-publishing.
Yeah, so let's delve into self. So if you're an author, new time author, which you've been there before, and you're trying to evaluate these different outlets that you have, sure, it can be kind of overwhelming trying to figure out this. And from what I'm hearing you say is that there's going to be key advantages and disadvantages to each publishing type. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so I'll hand it over to you for self.
Yeah, so it's trying to find out which one works best for you. Unfortunately, as we just talked about with traditional publishing, that's not always your choice. You have to be accepted for a traditional publishing house to do a traditional deal, which is pretty rare. All right, so a lot of people, because they can't get literary agents to respond to them, they send their manuscripts out. Most manuscripts get no reply, probably not even looked at, to be perfectly honest with you. So a lot of people turn to the self-publishing route. And so we'll talk about self-publishing. Okay, one of the advantages of self-publishing is you're going to keep 100% of your rights to the book. You're going to keep 100% of the royalties. And that sounds great, but let's talk about what that means. The author is going to have to do all the marketing. As many people that have approached us who have published a book self-published and it didn't sell, and we get those requests just about daily. Somebody who self-published a book doesn't understand why it didn't sell and now are coming to us to try to figure it out and try to find an alternative route to get their book into distribution. The author, self-publishing, you're going to have to do all the marketing. You can't just produce a book through Amazon, put it on Amazon, and expect that people are going to gravitate to that book and buy it. Something's going to make them buy it. So you're going to have to do marketing, and it's expensive to do marketing. And how do you do marketing, and where do you do marketing? And of course, if you're doing self-publishing, an author can hire a contractor, or there are services out there that will do marketing for you. Some of them have pretty good results. Some of them are terrible. And so weeding that out is another challenge for somebody that's doing self-publishing. The author must also retain their own editor, their own book formatter. And let's talk about editing for a minute, okay? I'm going to jump ahead to a bullet, but you see the bullet under this says no distribution. And the reason for that is this. A bookseller is not going to take a book on because there's no quality control in a self-published book. They have no idea whether the book's full of errors, and they don't have time to check your book. It's not going through a trusted distributor or a literary agent or a publishing house. So this is why you won't see a self-published book typically on any retail bookshelf. Barnes & Noble, a Walmart, a Costco, you're just not going to see self-published books there because there's no quality control. So you have to go find your own editor. You have to go find your own formatter. And people don't realize that formatting, there's different formats for books depending on what formats you're going to make your book available. There's a book that has to be done separately for Kindle and for ebook. There's one that has to be done separately for hardcover versus soft cover. And so you have to hire formatters to do that. And it gets quite expensive. And then, of course, graphic design, the book cover, and those require different formatting for book cover. So as a self-publisher, unless you go to a self-publishing service, and they're out there, okay, that have all of these services under one roof, you got to go and contract all these and put this book together. A book is basically a production. It's kind of like building a house where the forms and foundation have to be laid first, and there are certain things that have to happen for you to get to the next step. And it's a learning process. And for a first-time book author, it's a challenge. It's not doable. A lot of people self-publish books. Again, it goes back to they're not selling them because there's no distribution. There's nobody going to carry their book. Amazon will carry any book. You can self-publish a book, and Amazon's going to put it up there. But the key is, if your goal is to sell books, then how are you going to get those books into people's hands? You can distribute them through Amazon and others, but somebody needs to know about your book and you have to market it, which goes to the next one. Authors got to do all the promotion and marketing of the book. In order for a book to be successful, there has to be money spent on marketing. It's just not going to sell itself, again, unless you have a large platform. So what we have seen in the industry is very successful publishers that were under traditional, that were only getting 10, 12, 15% royalties, have moved over to the self-publishing because now they keep 100%, but they already have a large platform's already established. So now when their contract runs out, they can go self-publish and make more money from their books because they already have an established audience.
It seems like to me what you're saying about self-publishing is going to be best for an individual that has a pre-existing audience, a captive audience that they can leverage and take advantage of, or else the problem is distribution, right? Because how are you going to get it out there when everything is so saturated?
And Nick, that's a good point, because it could be that you have a large audience, but what we've seen been successful is authors that have kept their book rights, have produced 4 or 5 books that have all been bestsellers and then moved to that. So you could be a podcaster, you could be a semi-celebrity, and that still may not be enough to do a self-published book. The ones that have been very successful with self-publishing books are established authors that have a large readership and following that they will buy their book no matter what platform they put it on.
So you think that kind of comes back to having your audience in alignment with what you do? So if you're like a successful entrepreneur or a successful executive and you just launch a book, just because you have a captive audience doesn't mean necessarily that they're interested in you as an author, and you kind of have to still build up that authorship. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. The most successful authors that we have under the Defiance and the rest of our imprint banners are the ones that have learned how to build that platform. And it usually takes more than one book. So if it's a first time author who, doesn't have a social media following of any size and doesn't have another venue or a way to reach people through some other kind of audience that they've got, then they've got to build it. Self-publish with that is very difficult. It's not impossible. There's always exceptions, but it is more difficult. So that's all I had about self-publishing.